r/AskReddit. Men of Reddit, what's your creepy girl story? Once, an acquaintance added me on Facebook. When I clicked on her profile, it said she was in a relationship with someone. That someone was a fake account of me with my picture. She knew you would see it upon accepting the friend request. I feel like that makes it 10 times more creepy. I think it sounds like she was scrolling through his profile stalking him or stealing photos and accidentally friend requested him. How do you know you weren't the fake and she was with the original? Bruh, that's some Shutter Island shit right there. Met a girl online, we chat and set up a date. Date goes fine, she's a little weird, a little sheltered but seems nice. Not much chemistry, but I think that can take some time, so we give it another go, have a second date. Confirm I have no interest in a relationship with this girl on the second date, so we talk it out, no hard feelings, let's be friends. Fast forward 1.5 years, I'm in my kitchen with some friends getting ready to go out for my birthday dinner when we hear a knock on the door. I go check and no one is there, but there is a box with my name on it. There is a card and some gifts, which would be nice if this girl had ever been to my house before. I had moved since our 2 dates and still have no idea how she found me. You can find out a lot with a phone number, a creepy amount. Girl in my dorm. She had a crush on my roommate. My roommate clearly didn't like and told her several times. Things got out of hand and there were times where my roommate would come running back to the room yelling, lock the door, and moments later the girl and her friend would try to come barge in without permission. What's creepy is this next part. Apparently one night we accidentally left our room unlocked and she decided to sneak in and play/rub our heads. We didn't wake up, but her roommate told us what she did a couple days later. I haven't seen her in about a year, and I'm quite glad. She rubs your head softer now. Impossible. I now work as a RA, and know that she lives across campus. That plus I opted to get the room that takes 3 doors to get to my room. If she can make it past all my defenses, I will humbly allow her creepily rub my head while I sleep. 3 doors, but only 1 window. This younger girl who I never even spoke to once in high school had a crush on me. I got a note from her in my locker asking if I wanted to go out with her. I had no idea of how to get it back to her, so I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Then she started following me everywhere. I would try to talk to her, but she would just keep walking away, pretending I wasn't talking to her. This goes on for like 2 years. Then I was hanging out by myself one day around the neighborhood, and she comes walking up with 3 guys who wanted to kick my ass for some dumb unrelated stuff. She somehow found out about it and brought them to me. After an embarrassing scene with me diffusing the situation with these angry gentlemen, they leave, and she finally sits down on the curb right next to me and starts flirting. All I could do was just stare at her enormous bangs with a WTF expression until she got embarrassed and left. She was role-playing a vampire dude. Cold have shown her your main vein. Our high school basketball team had a female student manager. When we had games at other schools, she would always come up with a reason to need to get something in the locker room when we were showering. But we were so used to her, I guess no one said anything. Coaches probably should have stepped in there. That's not okay. How did she manage to get away with that? Because it's a she. Unfortunately. If it was a man, he'd have been reported. I was at a friend's birthday party for her dog. Probably was just an excuse to have people over and get drunk, and another friend, let's call her Michelle, is also there. I had known Michelle for a couple of years, but I only really ever see her a couple of times a year. She is very drunk, and also very married. Her husband was also at the same party. At one point in the night, she asks me if I have a girlfriend. I did not. If I'm looking for a girlfriend, where I'd been looking for a girlfriend, etc. Then she says that I had been looking in all the wrong places and that if I wanted a good girl, I should let her know. During this conversation, she also kept trying to grab my hand, and so at one point I made sure to always be holding a handful of mini pretzels in both of my hands as a sort of excuse to not be able to hold hands. I can't hold hands if I'm holding pretzels. Logic. Then finally she says, "I like you. I really like you." I'm like, okay. This repeats for a while until she says stop saying okay. It makes me feel like you think I'm bullshitting. Then she keeps following me around the room and keeps trying to make me dance with her until I leave. Her husband was pretty much always in the same room as us, no more than a few feet away, while this was all happening. I can't hold hands if I'm holding pretzels. Modern problems require modern solutions. I was bored once at a small, local festival and didn't want to be there, so I just got a drink and started walking around aimlessly when I noticed a fire brother. The display was interesting, and she was pretty hot. When she was on break she went to get a drink and we started talking. She seemed nice, we had a laugh, but her break was up, and she resumed her display, so I left her to it, and continued to wander around. 5 minutes later security was called to her display. Turns out some crazy girl, whom I had never met before, was following me around the festival and assaulted the fire brother. She had claimed that me and Crazy, were together and fire brother was trying to break us up. Heh, she was hot. I was in New Orleans watching some street performers go crazy and some mom came up behind me and fully grabbed both of my ass cheeks. I was 18 and standing next to both of my parents and she said, "Hey, you remind me of my son," which is probably one of the weirdest things to say in that moment. Maybe she can only recognize people by the feel of their ass. Oh, perhaps I discriminated against a blind woman. She befriended my younger sister just to get her to ask her to a sleepover. I woke up in the middle of the night with her laying in bed with me. I was 17 years old. She was 13. Almost this exact thing happened to me, except it was the daytime and the offender was my parents cleaning lady's kid. She was 13 or 14, and I was 18. She would try to wrestle with me every goddamn time she showed up, and every goddamn time I had to pry her off. I found out later that she had told everyone at her school that we had a relationship. So that was fun. First one was when I was 15. I was walking past my school and about to cross the road when a trio of drunk women in their 40s or 50s started hassling me about how good I looked, pressing me in against the wall, and surrounded me so that I couldn't get out, and holding me back while they copped feels. Not a fun experience, especially when you can't even tell people about it or how creeped out it's left you, because as a guy you should somehow be proud when women 3 times your age are grabbing you through your trousers against your will. Not a guy myself, but one I dated had a couple fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store, and she insisted on going in so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do." Agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. My man. Dude knows how it is. After that setup, I was kinda expecting him to deck her while making eagle noises. After all, she was threatening his liberty. I was like 13 over 14 years old, was playing Jabia online, some lame social networking game from like 2002, and met some girl. We hit it off and started chatting over AIM. Definitely did the cringy sibbering thing too. Well, eventually she comes clean that she's actually like late 20s, like 28 or something. Being a horny 14-year-old dude, that didn't bother me one bit. So then we start video chatting and she's like fully naked on cam with me. Again, 14-year-old me is not seeing an issue with this. Eventually she starts talking about coming to visit, so we can actually have sex. Again, not seeing the issue beyond the fact that she really was not very attractive, but even still I didn't think she was serious until she emails me a copy of her flight itinerary. At this point I panicked and blocked her, deleted my AIM, and stayed away from the computer for like 6 months and never heard from her again. Whoa. I would have called the cops after the tickets thing. Especially that you had evidence. Honestly, at that age I just thought I was gonna get in trouble more than anything. Especially since this was on the family computer. I had a friend who went absolutely crazy after her boyfriend broke up with her. Cutting, trying to force him to get back together, getting him kicked out of the group, to isolate him only for it to backfire and throw a fit, etc. And that was only freshman year. When he started dating another girl from our group senior year, she pretended to be cool, only to lie to the girl and try and convince her to break up with him because he was definitely texting her last night. Oh, and also Jet told her he hated her and that she was ugly and that he actually loved her, crazy girl, and was only with the new girl to make her jealous. Many other things happened too. That's a seriously deranged manipulative girl. During my last year of high school I would tutor students after school. One day about halfway through the year a new girl came in and sat next to me. The first thing she said was something along the lines of, "Do you wanna see my birth control?" She had an implant in her arm and showed me where it was. She then felt my arm and told me I was hairy. For the rest of the time she kept prying for personal info like who my friends were and where I lived. I didn't see her in tutoring after that, but one day during lunch she came up to my table, where I was just chatting with my friends, and inserted herself into the conversation before leaving randomly. I heard a few days later that she was suspended for either having drugs or a knife in her backpack. To be honest, she sounds like socially awkward or something. Maybe she just wanted friends. In elementary school there was a new Spanish girl who had a crush on me and would literally be non-stop staring at me and following me. Me and my friends tested it. In class they would look and see she'd be staring at me. In recess we went to the very far corner of the field and she followed, so I went back to the school wall and she followed, so I told the teachers and they finally got her to stop following me. She disappeared a few days later. Nobody knew where she went. She finally hid maximum level 4 sneak. Just because you can't see her doesn't mean she isn't there. I started going to a new doctor. The receptionist was cute, so I flirted a bit. In a waiting room, with other patients around. It was pretty innocent. She reciprocated. I figured it was all in good fun. She escalated a bit, stuff like scheduling me for days she was there, calling me directly with reminders, etc. Then she went into the records, got my cell number, and started texting me. Telling me she wants to meet up, she's not happy with her husband, etc. I noped out as fast as I could. In the US, this is a major crime. If she's treating your records this way, she's not respecting other people's privacy either. This girl followed me home after a date and stayed outside my house, and when I came out the next morning and acted like it was so funny we bumped into each other, I told her I will call the cops and she ran. Did she camp there? How much will that girl had to spend a night there? Those goddamn campers, they don't play Call of Duty how it was intended. Started dating a girl who lived like an hour away, so we only saw each other occasionally. One day when I'm out she decides to drive to my home and gets my roommate to let her into my room, where she proceeds to stick those glow-in-the-dark stars literally all over my room. And then leaves. I come home after being at a party where there was liquor and weed and my roommate is asleep so doesn't tell me anything. Lay in bed still drunk and high, click off the lights, and proceeded to think I was losing my mind because I couldn't tell if I was inside or outside looking at the night sky. Roommate didn't tell me until the next day. Hey, that's pretty funny. I don't really know if that's creepy. I met a girl online. She seemed normal enough, so we ended up going out for a drink. I found out that night that she actually lived an hour away in a rural town, but whatever. Well, we went out, had a drink, then went to go play pool. We drove over in my vehicle, and when we got to the pool hall she checked her phone and saw she had a text from her ex-BF. She proceeded to cry incessantly. I was trapped. I didn't know what to do, so I offered to take her back to her car. She said she wasn't sure if she could drive, and she asked if I would take her home. I declined, saying it wouldn't be a good idea because her car was like a mile away. She lived an hour away, and how in the hell did she plan to get to her car the next day? So she agrees for the night, to end all the while apologizing vigorously. The next day she texts me, apologizes, and offers to buy me lunch. She seemed alright when we were getting to know each other, and I was bored, so I figured what the hell, and gave her another shot. She brought her kids to the lunch. When I saw them get out of the car I texted her and said that it wasn't okay for me to meet them. She became irate and said her sitter cancelled at the last minute. Even though the drive was an hour long from her house, she didn't find it important to ask if it would be weird for her kids to come. It was at that point that I stated I was no longer interested. Now for the creepy part. 2 days later she texted me, but I didn't respond. She kept at it and kept asking if I wanted to go out the next weekend. After multiple texts I messaged her and said I wasn't interested and I had plans to take my friend out for her birthday. This resulted in even more irate messaging about how she wasn't comfortable with me going out with other girls and so forth. This resulted in her getting blocked. Turns out she took a guess on where we would go, since there was only one nightclub in the town, and she showed up. I had to tell the birthday girl that I was leaving and to call me when she was ready to go. My night was ruined. Birthday girl got home okay, in case you're wondering. But wait, there's more. A couple of weeks after that there was an ice storm and the power had gone out in the area. I ended up going over to a friend's house to hang out, since they had a generator. We were playing cards and enjoying ourselves. Suddenly I get a text from a number one didn't recognize. Are you alright? I'm really worried, the message read. I'm fine, who is this? I replied. It's creepy girl, she responded. I ignored it and put my phone down. The next message sent chills down my spine. I'm really worried. I'm standing outside your house and all the lights are off. Are you sure you're okay? She had never been to my house, and I had never given her my last name. My final message, before blocking her, involved not contacting me, or I'd call the police. It turns out she was a secretary or some shit for a police department and she ran my tag to found out where I lived, drove over an hour to my house in the midst of an ice storm, then got a new number also she could check up on me. That's bad. Really bad. Like she probably should be fired. Agreed, but that was the last I heard of her. You should probably report her anyway.